than the concurrent viewers counter. So can somebody please like put on the chat, say hello on the chat, like put a 1 in the chat when you arrive, just so I know when somebody's here. Please, do that. Comment something in the chat. Dominic is live. Just gonna wait for someone to join. Waiting for somebody to join, please. So post something in the chat when you join. Yeah, 140. No. So, this at 140. Hi. Oh, Michelaj Konopaki has joined. Okay. Now, Michelaj, I was going to reply to your comment in a second, then I realized that. So I read your comment about like using Mussolini cards in your history presentation. I was about to reply to your comment, then I realized I was 7 minutes late for going live. Sand Nukes and New Biome Yes has joined. Okay. So for the past couple of weeks, okay, we've made 36 top trump cards. And actually, the one that we missed out was there was this one Oliver Cromwell guy who we were going to make a top trump card about, but then I couldn't do it. Anyway, so I looked up about Oliver Cromwell just so I could finish the card in my own time. Turns out Oliver Cromwell is considered some sort of military genius. He's arguably one of the best commanders Britain has ever had, so I gave him a 10 for strategy and a 9 for tactics. But regardless, we have got 4 cards left, okay? We've got 4 cards left, and then the top trump set is going to be completed, and I'm going to fully publish the top trump set, okay? Like, I'm going to publish all 40 of the cards we've made. So, I kind of want to do George Washington, because I'm not sure if we've done George Washington yet. We might do George Washington we might do George Washington in a couple of goes, but on this stream, we're just going to be finishing off the last 4 cards. So if anybody has any people they want to suggest, we're going to make 4 cards this stream, okay? The last 4. Who are we doing? Kareem Well said, hi Fizzjuice, assalamu alaikum. Okay. So we could do that. Alright, Steiner and Assalamu. Okay. Now I should say, like a lot of Egyptian people, I'm really sorry about this, Kuma. Like, does anybody Oh, that's not it means peace be upon you. Oh, sorry. So that's not a person, is it? Sorry about that, Karima. Well, thank you. Thank you, Karima. So Sanduk says Steiner. Now I've heard the word Steiner before, okay? Except I don't know who I just don't know who Steiner is. It sounds like a German name. Is it German? Can someone tell me something about Steiner? Like, who was he, basically? Don't actually do Steiner. I did that as a joke. Is Steiner like a modern celebrity or something? Is he like a celebrity or something? Okay, I'm going to look up who Steiner is after the stream. Like, has anybody got any actual suggestions, or else we'll probably just do George Washington? I'm just going to check through the cards to make sure we haven't done him already, and then... Oh, Steiner was a German officer who counterattacked. God, I love this stream. Because this stream, I think we've got, like, all the regulars on this stream. Like, every person who regularly shows up on a stream, except for, like, one Red Shep has shown up. That's amazing. We got, like, the whole crew together. The whole squad. So, anyway, has anyone got... He did a counterattack at the end of World War II? Okay. Wait, did he lead the Battle of the Bulge? Was he, like, the Battle of the Bulge guy? No, okay. Anyway, so if nobody else has any suggestions, I think we should just do George Washington, actually. Alright, Karima seems to have plugged herself, so, if anyone wants to follow her on all of those grounds, go do so. He's kind of mentioned because of the Downfall movie. Alright, you know what, let's do George Washington. Let's do George Washington, okay, because... that one Hitler scene is raging. Okay, the amount that you guys are talking about this film makes me want to see it. Should I see that film? Soul food. Okay, so I checked through. We haven't done George Washington yet. Oh, fine, I'll see the film. So I checked it. We haven't done George Washington yet. Meaning, unless anybody else... I think we should just do George Washington, okay? You're saying your usernames? Yeah. I know. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're doing. You were saying your usernames. I know. So I'm just going to do George Washington. Is that okay? Is it okay if we do George Washington unless anybody else has any other solutions? On different apps? Okay. Right, let's do George Washington then. Not enough room for the entire thing. George Washing Machine, that is a good one. So, what was George Washington's influence on history, okay? Now the question boils down to, would Britain have got independence? The question boils down to, would America have got independence without George Washington, okay? Because if America would have gotten independence anyway, we got to give him quite a low score. But if America would never have gotten independence without George Washington, then George Washington ultimately gets a 10. So, what do you think, everybody? Would America have won? Let's see, okay? Now, the reason that they hired George Washington, okay, he could have been a dictator for life, but instead of standing down, paving the way from democracy. Yeah, that is quite a good thing. You know what they say, there's no such thing as a benevolent dictatorship, right? Unless the only benevolent dictatorships are the ones that give up their power in like 2 weeks or something, or give up their power quite quickly. But anyway, okay, so the thing about George Washington, right, is that George Washington was a Southerner. He was from Virginia, okay? And here's the thing. The Revolution started off as a Northern affair. The Revolution started off as a Northern affair, okay? Like Massachusetts and places, and Boston, they were all ready to go. They were like, hey, yeah, let's fight the British, kick those slimy redcoats to the curb. But the South weren't as invested, okay? They actually had to remove... They actually had to legalize slavery in America for the first few decades, so they didn't defend the South. So they called in a Southerner, i.e. George Washington, to lead the army to make the South a lot more happy about the war and give the South a stake. You know, George Washington, I don't think, was actually that good of a tactician. Like, the British beat him with the same tactics again and again. He lost quite a lot with the same tactics. However, the reason that George Washington was so good is because he was good at taking on other people's lives. Like, he was a good leader, okay? He could read the room, he could rally his men, but he was good at he was good at taking advice from other people, okay? Like when George Washington wanted to assault Boston, the officers were like, no, we're never going to take Boston. The British are too well fortified. But so instead they came up with another plan and they forced the British out of Boston. And similarly, later in the war, George Washington was like, yeah, let's take New York. But the French and all the rest of the officers told him, no. We're not going to be able to take New York. That's not going to work. So instead, they convinced him to take the army down south and attack Yorktown instead, and that was the decisive battle that actually won the war. So I think that America... Listen, America probably would have gotten independence anyway, because the thing about America is that the Americans would have sooner died than given up, okay? I can't imagine a world in which the American patriots would have gone, no, I surrender. It's like Britain. They're like Winston Churchill. Okay, we will fight them on the beaches. But America would have gotten independence anyway, in my opinion. America would have always gotten independence. But I think it would have taken longer. Okay, and that's the thing. 10, fine, 10. You know what, 10? Because the thing is, anybody who influences American history influences world history, okay? America is the most powerful nation in the world, has been for quite a while, and, you know, and ever since the Soviet Union collapsed, it has effectively been the global sovereign, okay? So anybody who had that much of an influence on US history, admittedly, probably does deserve a 10. I would argue, I agree with you, Colleen Morell said. Although the one thing I should say is that George Washington caused the USA to become independent a lot quicker than it otherwise would have. I think it probably would have taken longer without somebody like Washington, okay? And the reason for... I mean, maybe they could have hired a better guy than Washington and got it done in, like, 2 years or something. But no, what I mean is... Yeah, USA was the first to develop atomic weapons, okay? But no, what I mean is, okay, just a few years after, like a decade, not even a decade after the American Revolution ended, Britain would go to war with France, okay? And the war with France would have a complete and total, just complete overhaul of European borders, okay? Every single European border can be traced back. That's actually... Fizzy Juice, that's actually a really good idea. USA is so powerful that other countries could vote. I know it's not... I know you didn't actually mean it, okay? But I think it is a sort of good joke. It does... Like, obviously they shouldn't actually, okay? Because then all the US politicians go, the Chinese are coming to subvert our democracy. Which they say that anyway. But, you know, my point is, everybody does, just like, every country in the world does look at US elections, right? And just, like, cross their fingers, because whoever wins the election in places like the US, you know, does influence the world. Like, I agree with you, Karima. You know, both parties do suck. I think most of America actually agrees that both parties in America at least suck, and both parties suck. But like, it will still have an influence, you know, which party wins the election. At least I think that anyway. But anyway, I think we've, you know, taken a while on George Washington. What was George Washington's strategy like, okay? Does anybody have any suggestions of what we can do for George Washington's strategy? At all? Yeah, they do both love Israel, don't they? Alright, George Washington's strategy. 6. Well, that's the thing. I think the way that America was going to win the Civil War, America was probably never going to decisively defeat... He listened to lower generals. I suppose that's a tactic or something, not a strategy. Throwing tea in the rivers. Well, he didn't do the throw tea in the sea thing. A bunch of other people did that. But no, America was never going to decisively defeat the British Army. They basically had to hold... The way that America won the Civil War was they held out until Britain ran out of money and just could not afford to fight the Civil War anymore, okay? And Britain just said, well, this isn't worth it anymore, and so they stopped spending money there and stopped the war, right? So I think George Washington was semi-okay. I would say George Washington's strategy, he did correctly guess where the British were going to land. I think we should give George Washington a 7 for strategy. Anyone else? Anyone? Okay, I'm gonna go... I think, yes, I agree with you, Noob. I am, yes. 7. 7? Okay, let's give him a 7. Okay, tactics. What tactics does George Washington get? Now, tactics... now, the tactic that the British would use against George Washington, okay? They would send their small group to attack him, and then the main force around the side, and they'd outflank him. They defeated him twice in a row using that strategy. Twice. But still, no, in the end, the French and his other generals were able to coordinate an attack to defeat Yorktown, which is okay. So I think we should give him an average, I guess, maybe a 6. I'm thinking 6, okay, or 7. Like, he's not... Actually, I kind of want to look back on, like, other... I've got the pack here. Let's look back on some other generals and just see what they're like, okay? Like, for example, oh god. Like, Mao Zedong was given 6.5 for tactics, okay? Is George Washington on level with Mao Zedong? Let's see. Like, Julius Caesar got an 8. So, you know, I'm thinking 6.5. Does anybody disagree with 6.5? 6.5? Alright. Now, how are George Washington's propaganda skills? Now, George Washington... I've already mentioned this in the stream, but George Washington was a propaganda piece in himself, okay? Like, the reason they pick a Southerner was to draw the Southerners and, help the Southerners become more invested in the conflict, okay? And that's what... Pardon? Explain. So basically, so the American at the start of the American Revolution, the northern states of the USA were a lot more invested in the conflict. Okay, they were a lot more willing to fight. They hated the British a lot more. The South, I don't think the South wasn't as big a part of the conflict. The South wasn't as bothered. But on the other hand, okay, so George Washington was from at least the center, or at least what was considered the South at the time. So George Washington was from the South, so they called in the Southerner. They asked George Washington to be in charge of the army, and the main benefit of that was it made the South a lot more invested in the conflict and a lot more willing to fight. And I think that's why they chose George Washington, or one of the reasons anyway. Anyway, what were we? So how were George Washington's propaganda skills? George Washington, now, does anybody... I can't remember the name of the battle, but there was this one battle where George Washington crossed the Delaware River. Now, George Washington had been losing so many battles. Well, we gave Rommel a 3 because he was a hero, but didn't create this image by himself, so we shouldn't give Washington the same. Right, but the other main thing that George Washington did, okay, was that he'd lost so many battles. He was losing battles, okay? So, eventually, the British decided to stop attacking him and just settle in for the winter and party all winter, and then, go back to fight, and then go back to fighting in the spring. Okay? So George Washington used that opportunity to surprise attack them. Okay, Karima has to go for lunch. That's fine. Sorry about that. Bye. Goodbye. So yeah, George Washington used this opportunity to surprise attack the British across the river and defeat a couple of isolated outposts. It was a great victory, and it was a massive propaganda win. It was one of the biggest propaganda wins of the war, and probably one of the most influential propaganda wins in history. Like, that war, that battle did have strategic value, but it was mainly just restoring morale in the army, so that was okay. So I think we should give him higher than Rommel, okay, a 4 or 5, because I think he recognised that he needed a win, and then he got an easy win, okay? So, in my opinion, I think we should give him a 4 or 5. Anybody? Okay, I'm gonna give George Washington a 5. Why do you think 5? Is it because he was more than capable of keeping the colonies together? I'm gonna give him 4.5. Because let's remember, he was able to keep the Americans going till the end of the war. Like, George Washington, okay, admittedly, kept American morale high for like 8 years of fighting, okay? So good for him. That's why I agree. I agree with you lot, 5. Finally, how was George Washington's political skill? My water bottle's over here. How was his political skill, everybody? No. He became leader without even wanting to. Well, leader of what? Because general. He showed up to Congress in a military uniform every day for 10 months. Everybody knew. I'm getting this from oversimplified, by the way. Everybody knew that he definitely wanted the job of general. Oh yeah, because everybody did love him though. Dang, we should have given him quite high for propaganda though. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He became everybody told him to. Yeah, but that's not skill, is it? Like, a good politically skilled person, okay, would have not wanted to be in charge and would have convinced the people not to force him to be in charge, but they all forced him to be in charge, okay? Although, what I really, really respect about George Washington, what everybody respects about George Washington, is that he understood that he didn't really want to be a leader. He didn't want to be a leader, and that's the thing. It's kind of better to have a leader that doesn't want to be a leader, because... there's a common saying, okay, I'm not sure if that anybody who wants power shouldn't be allowed to have it. George Washington, didn't want power, and so that was kind of a good thing that he had it. So I do want to give him quite high for political skill. Everybody else seems to want to give him an 8. If anybody has any alternate suggestions, I will just give him a high score. Anybody? Okay. So we have made one for George Washington now. Whoa! First one of the stream, and it only took us 20 minutes, okay? So if we continue going at this rate, the stream is going to go on for like another hour, but you know it's okay because it gives me more watch time. So does anybody want to do next? Okay, has anybody got any other suggestions that they want to do, or because I'm out of ideas as well. I've kind of run out of people. Maybe Captain Cook. Captain Cook discovered a lot of places. He was the first British person to cover Australia. Oh, Winnie Games is here. What's up, brother? So yes, we are making top trumps cards about historical figures. Okay. So we just made a top trumps card about George Washington. It's inversed. Fatima Payman speech. Who's Fatima Payman? Where can you briefly summarize it for me? Anybody? So Winnie Games. Do you have any historical figures you want to make a top trump card about? Anyone? Okay, do you want me to watch it now? Who is Fatima Payman? I just got to get my laptop. So can somebody briefly explain to me who is Fatima Payman, and is she like a historical figure that we can make a video about? Wait, was that the cringe one? Oh. Okay. I get it. So I can... Okay, Michelangelo Konopaki, we'll do Eisenhower in a second. But so basically, apparently... So I remember seeing a video thumbnail, okay? And the title of the video was this, was the cringiest speech ever. And then in the thumbnail, there was words like Rizzler in the thumbnail. No, she's not a historical figure. So guys, Michelangelo Konopaki, we will do Eisenhower. The next person we do is going to be General Eisenhower, okay? But first of all, do you want me to react to the speech live, or do you not bother? Because I'm not a reaction YouTuber. I'll just do Eisenhower, okay? Because I'm just going through the cards to check. Like I'm flicking through the cards. I'm just checking that we haven't done Eisenhower yet. I don't think we've done Eisenhower. I'm checking. Checking. No, we haven't done Eisenhower before. Okay. In which case, yeah, I'll watch the speech after stream, because you've given me a long list of things to watch. A speech, a film recommendation, what else? So Eisenhower, okay? Now, for those of you that never heard of him, which is probably not that many, considering you're all probably history fans, Eisenhower was basically the main US general during World War II. So what are we doing here? So I'm going to write his name down. We've got to start, obviously, influence on history. How much of an influence on history did he had? Because there's a common saying there's a common saying, okay? The saying is, you have won the war, now win the peace, okay? Because here's the thing, a war doesn't really matter when it comes to influence on history. It's just a case of what happens after the war that truly matters, okay? So, for example, World War II is a prime example of this, okay? World War II was tragic and all, like, 80 million people died or something. But the far greater impact of the war was the Cold War that followed it, okay? So, for me, Germany was always going to lose World War II, okay? Once their attack on Moscow had failed, in fact, once they invaded the Soviet Union, there was very little chance of them winning, if any. It's just a case of how much land in Europe does the Soviet Union control, and how much land in Europe is controlled by the West, okay? So, if Eisenhower never existed, if they picked somebody else to be general, okay, would those borders have changed that much? Would the borders have changed at all? At all? Does anybody? Because I don't know a lot. Okay, not really. Because I read somewhere in a book, okay, that... Now, I should say, I've analysed this history book, and the history book sucks, okay? Well, it doesn't suck, okay? But it gets some very basic details wrong, and it's quite biased against the USA. Like, every time it mentions the USA, it seems to... Fizzy he was in Europe. He was a European gen. He was in Europe. So the book I'm talking about, every time the USA is mentioned in the book, it decides to just make fun of the USA or insult it. So I think anything relating... So take this with a grain of salt. But apparently, he went to Bavaria because he thought Germany was plotting to make a last stand in Bavaria, when he could have instead gone to attack Berlin. But he didn't want to waste too many forces in a senseless assault on Berlin, when instead Soviets could die doing that. Could fight and die doing that. But turns out it was false. The Germans weren't actually planning to make the last stand in Bavaria. I don't really believe that. But anyway, Eisenhower, okay? He wasn't good. He wasn't so good at D-Day, so borders had changed. The US let the Soviets have Berlin as a political move. Exactly. The Soviet Union was already going to have Berlin. Because they have to make the Soviet Union they wanted to make the Soviet Union happy, because... You know, they don't want to be enemies of the Soviet Union after the war. I mean, they ended up being enemies of the Soviet Union after the war, but that wasn't a very good outcome, especially because in Japan, okay, the Soviet Union had already agreed to attack Japan, and if they made the Soviet Union too angry, they might call off their attack on Japan, you know? So, they kind of had to. So, can someone tell me... I can pull my map up over there. If someone better than Eisenhower had been in charge of D-Day, what would have happened, okay? What would have happened? Like, how differently would it have gone? Can Mikolaj Konopaki, you seem to know that. Can you fill me in, please? Just gonna give you a minute. You don't think... Yeah, the Soviets would still have been given Berlin. Yeah, because, well, yeah, the borders work right. And it doesn't really matter what the specific borders are a little bit. You know, it doesn't matter what the borders are, okay? It just matters that they exist. Like, okay, the territory exists a little bit. Like, the Ruhr is quite important. But the USA would still have conquered the Ruhr land, so... The West couldn't get more land for me, really. So you think borders would have been the same? Sure. Alright. In which case, what should we give Eisenhower for influence on history? Low? Should we give him low for history? Low for influence? Oh, it's another one of these trolls calling me gay. Okay. That's nice. West couldn't... 5 or 6. He ended up being president. Did he? Stop yapping. Fine. I'll give him... I'll give him a 6, okay? I'm gonna give him a 6. Is everybody okay if I give him a 6 and then we can move on? Is it okay if I give him a 6? Okay, you know what? Okay, everybody okay with a 6? Like, I know he was president, but like... Oh, you were talking to the goon. Right, yeah. 6? Alright, fine. 7. I agree, 7. I gave him a 7. Alright, wonderful. Strategy. What was his strategy like? The goon. Why did your chat freeze? Apparent... Noob... Okay, is the chat still frozen, Noob? Noob, I am yes. Is the chat still frozen? What was Eisenhower's strategy like? Nope, you're back. Okay. So, how good was Eisenhower's strategy, okay? Because I think Eisenhower led the American forces when they invaded North Africa. Didn't they? Does anybody know anything about that? Alright, Mikolaj Konopaki knows stuff about that? Alright. Mikolaj Konopaki, can you please tell me? Do you know anything? Operation Torch was great. Operation Torch was great. All right. Probably pretty good. Okay, like, what specifically? Okay, do you have any, like, specific suggestions of exactly how highly we should rank him? Like, we kind of need numbers here. Numbers. 7? Do you want to give him a 7? Okay. Michelaj, I think you seem to know a decent amount about this, so I think we should value your opinion. Quite highly, Michelaj. Landing in Morocco at the same time and stacking Tunisia from both sides. Yeah, that drove the Germans out of North Africa, and I think that was probably the first big Allied win of the war. Like, maybe in the Pacific region, they probably had a couple of wins, but, like, he was the first big Allied win of the war. Okay? Like, there's no way he was bad. He wasn't bad at his job. It is impossible to win World War II and then also be bad at your job. So, I think we should give him probably 7, I would argue. Now, how good were his tactics? Because, actually, I just remember, okay? So I watched some, like, 30-minute YouTube documentary about the Battle of the Bulge, so, you know, I have great peer-reviewed sources on this. But basically, okay, when the Americans launched their last-ditch offensive at the Battle of the Bulge, what happened? Not the Americans. When the Germans launched their last-ditch offensive at the Battle of the Bulge, everybody, all the other generals said, it's probably nothing, don't bother, it's not a major offensive that's attempted to turn the side of the war or anything. But Eisenhower said, no, I think this looks like a major offensive that's going to turn the tide of the war. So Eisenhower just rerouted all US troops and all the US reserves towards the area of the Battle of the Bulge, and it's a good thing he did that because, you know, and it was quite remarkable that he managed to do that. Like, that is a logistics miracle. Well done for them for that. And the Battle of the Bulge? Okay, so Michelaj, the Battle of the Bulge was when Germany was losing World War II, their last-ditch offensive, 1945, their last-ditch offensive was to try to... So, you know how in 1940, the German forces swung round through the Ardennes and pinned the British and French forces at Dunkirk, right? Well, in 1945, when they were losing, they tried to do that again, only this time Eisenhower realised what he was doing, rerouted all the US forces to the scene, and they stopped the offensive. You know, fun fact, you might know this, but a bunch of American soldiers got surrounded in the Battle of the Bulge, and the Germans told them to surrender, and the commander in charge of Germany, in charge of the American forces, said, nuts! And they wrote down nuts on a piece of paper and, you know, sent that as their official reply. And I suppose the Germans, who probably didn't know much about American culture, I think they had to get their American translators to say, you know, ouch, to say that, it effectively means no. Hi, Nicole. No, we're making a top trump card for General Eisenhower. General Eisenhower was an American general during World War II. So I think I actually want to give him higher for strategy. I want to give him an 8 for strategy, so I've updated that. We give him an 8. So does anybody have any suggestions for exactly what we should give him for tactics then? Anybody? Because I don't know much about Eisenhower's tactics. Or did he even have any tactics? Anybody? Otherwise I might just give him a 7. Keep going. Alright, I'll keep going. So I'm going to give Eisenhower a 7 for tactics unless anybody has any disagreements. He was kind of field marshal. He did a good job of giving lower ranked generals space. He didn't really do individual battles. When he says giving lower ranked generals space, what did he mean? Is it like giving them enough freedom to make decisions? Or something. Is that what giving space means? Or are we gonna have to put not applicable? Yeah, that's what it means, okay. Are we gonna have to put not applicable for Eisenhower because he didn't actually fight individual battles? We might actually have to give a not applicable. I actually thought we were gonna get through this without doing a not applicable, but I don't like giving not applicables, but I guess we have to for this one. Blinful, I'm really into the subject, am I? Yeah, I am. I'm quite a history nerd. I think I've been a history nerd for like a long time, like years or something. So yeah, just give him a 7. Shall I give him a 7, everybody. Unless anyone has any disagreements, I'm going to go 7. Okay, 7. Okay, finally, how was Eisenhower's propaganda skills? Now I wonder, did he actually do this? Because I'll give you a fun fact about General Eisenhower. Okay, when it came to retaking Paris, all right, the French resistance launched their uprising against the Germans in Paris, expecting the Americans and the French to come and help them. Okay, and the person in charge of the Free French forces was a General de Gaulle. Okay, and General de Gaulle wanted to go to Paris and he wanted to be first inside the city. Okay, and so I think General Eisenhower allowed de Gaulle. What's it called? General Eisenhower allowed de Gaulle and his French forces to be the first to enter the city. And there's a good thing about that. And it's good. Okay, and I think that made the French like him a little bit. That was probably a propaganda win. Or maybe he just wanted to be nice to de Gaulle because de Gaulle asked him so nicely. So what do you think we should give him for propaganda? Because I do want to give him a number for propaganda. I'm not going to give him a not applicable for this one. But like, what does anybody know anything else about propaganda? His propaganda. Six. Michelangelo says 6. Anybody else? Going once, going twice, 6. Woohoo. No. Alright, anybody? How about we rank him average? I want to give him a 5. Can everyone tolerate a 5? I hope anyone can tolerate a 5, because that's exactly what I've given him. Alright, finally, there is one more person we have to do. 5, okay. I gave him a 5. Now, there is one more person we have to do, and that is political skill, okay? What are we going to give him for political skill? The time. There's so much with this. Okay. 7. Because here's the thing. He became president, and I know a lot of former US generals become president, but it clearly works, okay? But like it clearly works because so he has enough political skill to become the US president, okay? That means I think he deserves at least a 5 or a 6, possibly higher. Does Michelangelo, you probably know a lot about him, but does anyone know anything about Mr. Eisenhower here, General Eisenhower? Okay, so does anyone have any suggestions about his political skill? Anyone? Anybody? No? Okay, I'm just going to give him a 7, alright? Because he probably doesn't need that much political skill. He's a US general, you know. I'm going to give him a 7. And has the chat frozen? Because this happened last time, which the chat froze. No? No, the chat hasn't frozen, okay? 7. Alright. Because I just got you. Because every time someone doesn't post for Frizzy Juice, yeah, you said you don't know. Every time someone doesn't post on the chat for a while, okay? I wonder if it's frozen because it happened once, okay? I just looked up. This is so fun, okay? Like, do you know how sometimes I do Kahoot streams, right, okay? The Kahoot streams are kind of boring. Like, I'm always constantly checking the clock, and it's a bit like, come on, just 10 more minutes just to get that extra watch time. But this, on the other hand, this is genuinely fun. I will look up and, like, 18 to 20 minutes have passed, and I did not even know. That's how much I enjoy this, okay? I might even stop doing the Kahoot streams, I don't know. We've got 2 more cards left, and it is currently 40 minutes in, so it is an average of 20 minutes per card. Who are we gonna... We got 2 more people left. Who do you want to do? Got any more generals, world leaders? I'm just gonna quickly plug my phone in because it's running out of battery. Give me a sec. I can't look at the chat at the moment because I'm looking at I'm plugging my phone in to a wire. Am I trying to get 4K watch hours or something? Yeah, I am trying to get 4,000 watch hours, and currently I'm on 830 watch hours, and I have to say, these days most of my watch hours come from streaming, but I do enjoy doing these streams. I do enjoy doing them, and I probably would still do them, even if I wasn't trying to get the 4K watch hours. But it's also nice to get the 4K watch hours, Okay. So has anybody got any other suggestions? What do you get to? So on YouTube, if you can get to 4,000 hours of content watched, that allows you to claim a portion of the money. That allows you to claim a portion of the money from the adverts on your channel. Before then, YouTube just takes all the money for some reason. 10 million shorts views you can get 10 million shorts views, but that's very difficult. It's arguably easy to get 4,000 watch hours. Although there is another caveat. If I can get just 3,000 watch hours rather than 4,000 watch hours, I can set it up on YouTube so that you can pay me money. Like I can set up the thanks and the donate button on streams or something. But I would rather get 4,000 watch hours so I can get the ad money. So has anybody got anybody else they'd like to do, or else I'll just think of somebody. Maybe Captain Cook? Would you like to do Captain Cook? Because I don't know that much about Captain Cook. Any other suggestions? Well, we've done Churchill. Well, we've actually done Churchill before, sadly, so we can't do him again. However, Francisco Franco, okay. We've not done Francisco Franco before, so I think we should do him, okay? Franco. Franco, Crush Cow. Okay, so I've actually never heard of Crush Cow before, so unless it's a joke and you're trolling me or something, but if Crush Cow is a joke I'm not picking up on, sorry, but if Crush Cow is an actual person, then I've never heard of him, so I will have to Google him or look it up for you, or ask you. So I'm just gonna write down Churchill, okay? Not Churchill, sorry, Franco. Crush Cow. The leader of the USSR is telling you. That's Khrushchev. Khrushchev, not I. Remember, these are the last two. What's it called? These are the last two top Trump runs I'm ever gonna make. We could do empires as well. Instead of people, we could do empires, but I know. Yeah. Ooh. Do you want to hear a fun fact about Franco before we start? Okay. So there was a book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was a book about a bull, and the bull didn't like fighting the other bulls. The bull didn't like violence. The bull just preferred peace. He preferred to sit under a tree sniffing the daisies. Franco and Hitler both banned the book. So that probably shows their stance on violence for you. So Franco, for those of you who've never heard of Franco, which I presume is not many because he's quite famous, basically he led the nationalist side during World War II. In the Spanish Civil War, which lasted about 3 years, he led the nationalist side. He was a fascist, or at least claimed to be a fascist. Fascist is an ambiguous definition, against the Republicans. They were the left wing. And anybody from liberals to communists and to anarchists was on the Republican side. So he defeated the Republicans and won effectively, and he was dictator of Spain until his death in the 1950s. So what should we give Franco for influence on history? I want to say not much, because sure. Because, what has Spain done? I'm not trying to be rude to Spain. They got some good football players, I think. Wow, it was 1970s, wow. What has Spain... I'm not trying to be rude to Spain, okay? They got some good football players. I think they beat Britain, didn't they? I know the Euros was really recently, but I genuinely cannot remember which country it was that defeated England. I just remember that England lost. So I want to give influence on history to not much, okay? Mussolini gets 2, so Franco gets 1. Ah! You remembered! Yeah, good job. Good job, Michelaj. You should give him a 1. Because Mussolini does get higher than Franco. So, moving on. His strategy. What are we doing for strategy? So his strategy was good enough to win. Let's remember, his strategy was good enough to win a civil war. Okay. So what are we giving Franco? Because or do we not know much about him? Anybody? Anyone? Anyone? My lips are quite dry right now. I'm probably going to put on Vaseline afterwards. So yeah. So what shall his strategy be? He was only good at stacking in right time. What does stacking mean? Oh, I don't know what this means, but I assume is stacking where you like bunch a bunch of military forces together? I just noticed what? That my lips were dry. You came back with whatever. Hi Karima, Elle said, so yeah. So is stacking where you bunch a bunch of your military forces together and just sort of send them to break through a thin line. Is that what stacking is? Like you send a big stack. I assume that's what it is. He was only good at stacking in the right time. He got carried by German and Italian equipment. I mean, yeah, he did receive aid from like Portugal and Germany and Italy and places. Although his enemies ultimately didn't receive that many supplies. So what do you want to think? Do you want to give him a 6? What do you want to give him? Michelaj, do you have an opinion? 4 at the most. What about okay? What else did he what did he do wrong? Like, did he do anything wrong? Michelad, did Franco do any bad tactics? Did he do something that screwed up? What about Nubiam? Yes. Have you got any other opinions to add to the table? Karima, perhaps. Thanks for coming back, by the way. He didn't attack at the right time. Well, okay, No, okay, Noob doesn't know. So, Michelaj, like, can you explain the context, okay? What do you mean he didn't attack at the right time? What was the situation? What year was this and all? Anyone? If he attacks he should have attacked Barcelona earlier. The Spanish Civil War would be shorter. Okay, and that means he gets low for strategy? Okay, so does that mean we should give him a... So is it okay if I give him, like, just over a 4? Like a 4.3 or a 4.7 or something? Noob, Karima, anybody? Anyone? Yeah, I am going to give him a... Franco and Hitler, man. I gave him a 4.4. Okay? Not sure if you can see from there. Now, tactics. Fizzy Juice is back. So, how good are his tactics going to be? Ow! How good are his tactics going to be? Now, maybe he didn't have tactics. Once again, it's people like Franco. Did Franco actually fight on the battlefield? Was he a commander, or did he just... Or was he one of those generals who just ordered his generals to do stuff for him? Like, so did he actually fight on the battlefield? No, sorry. Did he actually command individual battles? Just basic stuff? Okay. So, given that we've got nobody else who likely knows anything about the subject, I think we have no choice but to believe Michelaj here. So unless somebody has... unless someone else wants to weigh in, I will probably give him a 4. Is that okay? 4? Okay, I'm giving him a 4. Now, okay, we're moving on to propaganda skills, okay? Now his propaganda skills were interesting, okay? Something Franco did, right, is that he had 2 groups of people that wanted to side with him, okay? But they only agreed to side with him if they got to choose the king afterwards. Like, if their leader became king, okay? And he couldn't choose because he chose one person would not join him, okay? So, is the chat frozen? I think the chat might be frozen. Anyway. So if he chose between the 2, one of them may not join him, okay? So instead he announced that there would be a king after they won, but instead, but he didn't specify who that king would be. And so, both of the people, so both of those groups of people agreed to side with him. Both of those groups of people agreed to side with him, assuming that they would be king, assuming that their person would be king, but in reality, Franco made himself king afterwards. No, it's not frozen. I can see your messages. The chat isn't frozen. Okay. So, wonderful. So that's quite a good idea. So do you think we should give Franco Hardy for propaganda, okay? Like, he convinced an entire country to side with him against the communists and all. So what's Franco propaganda? What's that good? What do we give that? Anyone? Like 6? Alright. He thought he had a different king, not himself. Really? I swear he made himself king. Well, either way, that king was probably just a puppet of Franco. In fact, definitely not a puppet of Franco. There's no way that Franco, you know, there's no way that Franco would have made a non-puppet king. But either way, Franco won in the end. He played them all like a fiddle. He played them all. Which is why we should probably give him highly for political skill. But so, yeah. Do we give him a 6? A 6 for politics? 6 for propaganda? Gonna give him a 6 for propaganda, okay? Okay, and finally, political skill. How good was Franco's political skill? At all, political skill. What's his political skill like? 7 or 8? Yeah. Because here's the thing. I just want you to understand how complex the Spanish Civil War... I want you to understand how complex the Spanish Civil War was, okay? For example, the Republican side, that was the left wing, had anybody from liberals, socialists, social democrats, communists, anarchists. They all sided with each other, had a very difficult time getting along. The anarchists took over Catalonia before the communists conquered it from them, and then finally... And then, meanwhile, on the other side, the nationalists, that was the side that Franco led, the Republicans, they were literally any group of right. Literally, it was the same thing, but right. Okay. Any group of right-wing politics you could imagine, it was just a mixture of that. Okay. He didn't end the ETA terrorists. Fizzy Juice, what were the ETA terrorists? Can you tell me about those? I've never heard of them. Anne was prime minister for 40 years until his death. Yeah, in fairness, that means he has to have some high skill. And convinced Italy and Germany side with it. Although Italy and Germany was also also supporting the nationalist cause even before Franco came to rule it. So I'm not sure if we give him that high credit for that. Fizzy Juice. So tell me about the ETA terrorists. I've never heard of those. Should I Google them? I've got a computer here. Should I Google them now? I'm going to Google them. But if anybody else knows anything about the ETA terrorists in the chat, I'll happily read it off. Give me a second. Just searching. Okay, so... right. So they were basically a Basque independence movement, and he didn't manage to end them. Okay, so what should we give Franco? Is it okay if I give Franco like an 8 or a 9? 8, 9? I'm gonna... 8, okay. I ended up giving him an 8.5. Alright, wonderful. So we've done Franco. I'll post these cards on the chat later, don't worry. Now, who else are we going to do, okay? Who is going to be the last person who we ever make a top trumps card out of? Who's going to get the honour? Who? Who? Who's it going to be? Anyone? Khrushchev? Khrushchev. Mikolaj says Khrushchev. Anybody else? Otto von Bismarck. Okay. Now, Mikolaj Konopaki, I appreciate you want to do Khrushchev, but you can't really deny Otto von Bismarck deserves this spot more than Khrushchev. Like, I wish we could include everybody in history, but Bismarck deserves this spot more than Khrushchev. I'm sorry. So yeah, you're right, Fizzy. We should be doing... Fizzy, you're right. Bismarck. Okay? Oh, God, there is so much. Okay. What was Bismarck's influence on history? Now, I know what to say. Bismarck... This may or may not have been intentional, but Bismarck played everybody like a fiddle, okay? He played the Austrians into helping him... He played all the other countries into allowing him to invade Denmark, or at the very least not opposing his invasion of Denmark, okay? Like, for example, he convinced Britain and Russia not to oppose his invasion of Denmark. He convinced Austria to help him invade Denmark. He then used the invasion of Austria... So he then used the invasion of Denmark to provoke Austria into a war. He then used Italy to help him defeat Austria, and then he used the and then he and then he played all the German states into joining him, okay? And then he manipulated France into going to war against him, and then he manipulated all the other German states into going to war against France. And then got them all to unite into Germany. So I think, and then Germany would go on to start World War One or fight in World War One, and then all the stuff that happened after that, World War Two and the Cold War and all that. So in my opinion, I believe, okay, that I think that he deserves really high for influence in history. 8. Seriously, 8 is an insult to him, I would argue. Maybe not 8. Maybe not. So what do you think? I would give him a 9 or a 10, because but like if you guys want to give him an 8, I can compromise him at like 8.5 or something, or 8.7. Well, what do you guys think? I'm putting the stream up on chat now, so I'm putting the stream up on my computer now. 9. Okay, I'm gonna give him... Oh, yes, I listed political skills. Yeah, that's for political skills, right. But 9 for political skills, right? Definitely. Let's just give him 9 for political skills. But what I mean is, that's influence on history. What I mean is, okay, he created modern Germany, okay? And if modern Germany didn't exist, that means like things like World War One would happen in a very, very different way. So, whoopsie. But so for influence on history, I think 8.7, okay? Can I give him an 8.7 for influence on history? Is that okay? Great. Okay, so we've done influence on history. What was his strategy like? Does anyone have any opinions about his strategy? Okay, anybody? Anyone got any opinions on his strategy? Or did he even do a strategy, okay? It's perfectly possible that he didn't have a strategy and he just... not applicable. Political strategy, political strategy, he deserves high on political strategy. But actually battle strategy, did he do much on battle strategy, or did he just order his generals to fight, Sure, he created a battle scenario that would allow his generals to win, but his generals still did the strategy and the fighting. So what are we saying? What are we saying for him? Although, in fairness, because I agree with Michelaj on this one, I think we do not applicable. Not applicable? Do you all think not applicable, okay? Not applicable? Anybody? Does anyone know political at all? I'm pulling the stream up now. You know what? Fine. I'll give him a not applicable. I'm about to give him a not applicable, okay? If anyone has any disagreements, that's fine. He convinced the king to follow him, yes, but that's political strategy, not battle strategy. Hi, purple dude. But for battle strategy itself, I truly believe he only deserves a not applicable. I think we'll give him really highly for political skill, though. But for battle strategy, not applicable. And tactics as well. Okay, finally, we got one last thing we have to do. Propaganda, okay? How good was his propaganda skills? Now, in fact, doing what's it called? Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Doing the invasion of France, right, when he had Paris surrounded, he ordered the general to shell the city, and the general didn't want to do that, but whatever. The general shelled the city, and it didn't do much to break the spirit of the people of Paris. Although the one good thing he did do was when he drove the Danish out of like Schleswig-Holstein, he did it to protect the Germans from foreign invaders. Okay, you know, protecting our fellow German citizens. Okay, and so what? But now we wanted to occupy those places. Okay, so protecting those places from invaders, he now had to come up with a really good excuse to, you know, stay there in his troops, and he actually managed it. Okay. His excuse was he was protecting them from Austria because he convinced Austria to occupy them himself. So I think that's actually really good. I want to give him like high for propaganda. I want to give him at least an 8 on propaganda skills. Do you want to give him an 8? Let's give him an 8, okay? Does anyone disagree with an 8 as a score? Anyone at all? Nobody seems to oppose me on this one, okay? Unless... 8, okay. And that is it. All 40 cards have been completed. And that's... And, you know, this kind of feels like anticlimactic. Like, I kind of thought it would be some, like, a great, amazing thing. We're like, yo, we've done it! Woo! But, you know, for some reason, it just feels a bit anticlimactic. Anyway, bye. 4 cards done. Bye. 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 Unless there's anything else you want to talk about. Like, is there anything else anyone wants to talk about, or shall I just... Bye.